The Joe Rogan Experience.
What do you think about all this stuff about, the New York Times had articles about it. There's Air Force test pilots have come out talking about encountering flying saucers. Mm-hmm. Or unidentified flying objects, particularly Commander Fravor, who had that tic-tac thing. Yeah. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, we do. I'm a shameless marketer. We do an episode on that, on ATIP, on the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program. And look, again, I always say the same thing. I'm not a conspiracy guy. I tend to be very cynical about everything, but. After talking to some of these folks, including Fravor and a handful of others who were both pilots and also were involved in the ATIP program for the U.S. government, for the military, there's things out there that we haven't been able to identify, right? And I'm not jumping on the alien train, right? Necessarily, but what I'm saying is that there are things that extremely experienced pilots, military pilots with significant amounts of experience couldn't figure out, couldn't identify, right? And so I'm certainly not going to be smart enough to say, okay, this is what it was. Was it a foreign government's experimental aircraft? Was it something? I don't know. But what I do know is that the U.S. government took it seriously enough that they developed their own internal program within the Pentagon to try to sort out the wheat from the chaff, right? And say, okay, what do we actually have to worry about? In part because it's a national security issue, right? If there is a aircraft or if there's something up there that a military pilot sees, for instance, that they can't identify, all right, well, we have an obligation to figure out what that is, because if it's a hostile foreign government's efforts to develop, craft that we don't know about or propulsion systems we don't know about, then yes, we should be working on that issue. The problem has always been that once you talk about that, then people immediately go, oh, aliens, huh? Area 51, and it kind of gets dismissed. Yeah. But there was a much more serious effort than I knew about before I started working on this thing. And so I don't know. I think I've got an open mind about that. It's like that old thing about how can we really be the only people out here, right? Or life forms out here. I don't know. That seems a little obscure for me to believe.
It seems unrealistic.
Yeah. So, but
when a guy like Fravor, that's the thing. When someone who's that rock solid comes out and tells the story, and he's not deviating from his story. He's not a guy who's trying to make money. He's just, and he doesn't have a history of telling fantastic stories.
And he knew what it meant when he was going to come forward and talk about this. And you've got the gun cameras, and you've got the radar operators who also saw the same thing.
They saw it, and they said it was actively jamming their radar. Yeah. Which they said, what the fuck? And then the way it moved from 60,000 feet down to like 200 feet in like less than a second.
Yeah, and no signs of any propulsion system.
Yeah.
No, there's several things about that leave you scratching your head. Again, I'm not making a case one way or the other. The point of this is to kind of use the money trail as a way to get inside some of these programs, and then to the degree that you can, without to the degree that you can talk about things that are declassified. Not necessarily try to make a case. We're not trying to say it is this or it is that, but I think we're presenting a lot of interesting information that, again, with this situation with Fravor as an example, you come away from it and you think, okay, I'm not dismissing anything at this point. Just it would be I think foolish to or anyway. So interesting stuff. But
was that ever anything that came up during your career?
No, I was pretty much straightforward. Pound the ground through some counterinsurgency operations, counter-narcotics, counterterrorism operations. We never did any counter-alien things. So right, that was a different operation. That was on a floor we weren't allowed to go onto at the headquarters.
Seems like if we had to admit it was real, if it was something that was real, and we were being contacted on a regular basis, or at least a semi-regular basis, that would change the way everybody feels about everything.
Yes.
Remember when Reagan gave that speech?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I think it was the United Nations. He said, imagine how easily we would come together if we were faced with a threat from an alien world.
Right.
And everybody was like, oh my God, he knows something. Yeah. The aliens.
He's about to spill the beans.
Yeah, that's what we were hoping.
No,
all
it's
the
yeah,
UFO dorks like
yeah.
myself.
Well, but think about it. I mean, think if that did come out, which is what part of the allure, right? Is the idea that the government's been keeping this from us for all these years, and you think about what that would mean. Not just obviously, oh my God, really? There's something going on out there, but then sort of that breakdown in trust. Not that it's not happening already in terms of the government and its ability to play square, but. Yeah, I mean, look, Area 51. Area 51 was scouted out for use as an experimental, test site for aircraft, and made perfect sense. Well, then you get all these experimental aircraft being developed out there and flown, some successfully, some not, and locals, see this shit. Locals being a fairly good-sized region because of the distance on these, and. It's understandable how you start getting some of these stories. But, having said that, I sat down with Fravor, right? We talked about this a lot for this one episode. And I talked to several others. And, again, I come away and I'm not sure what to think. But, again, I'm not closing the book on anything at this point.
See, the way I looked at it is if these were unique expeditions from another planet, or whatever it is that comes here, some alien spacecraft, all they'd have to do is come here once or twice.
Get fed up.
Well, not even that, but I used to have a bit about it, how Earth is the Tijuana of outer space. They only come down here when they're fucked up and they want to see a show. That's why they don't stay. They just come down and they go, what the fuck? Like, no one's doing any science expeditions to Tijuana.
I'm not going back there. No way. Not unless I'm drunk again.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking that if they were going to come down here and examine us, I mean, they could just do it a couple of times and people have these stories and everybody else dismisses it like, where are they? Where are they? I don't see any aliens.
Yeah.
Because you really wouldn't. And you probably don't. If they're capable of moving at the speed that Fravor described, where it was just impossible to track with the human eye.
They're not going to view us as a threat.
No.
Yeah, they're not going to.
They think we're a threat. I think they're just, I don't know.
They're not going to look at us and say, we want to steal their technology.
It's the most fascinating thing to me. Out of all the weird what ifs and who could do this and how could that be true, the alien one is the most fascinating. Because if that was real, and if we somehow or another one day get some undeniable proof, like the Fravor film, the film footage, the gunner footage, the radar footage, that's pretty goddamn compelling. But man, if there was something off the charts.